Senator Van Hollen. Senator Daines has yielded to Senator Britt, right? Senator Britt's recognized from Alabama.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Daines. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to ask you all a few questions. I want to start by saying I am proud to be from the great state of Alabama, where our financial institutions are strong. Our regional banks, our community banks, our credit unions, and the critical role they play from our main streets to our rural roads could not be understated. So I am proud of the work they do and proud of the strength they continue to exhibit. Mr. Barr, I want to follow up on a question that one of my colleagues brought up. You keep talking about the Fed focusing on the size of SVB and banks. However, 2155 also requires the Fed to take into consideration riskiness, complexity, financial activities, along with other risk-related factors. Tailored supervision ensures that the Fed focuses on the most risky banks. You've said repeatedly that bank mix management led to SVB's failure. The whole point of 2155 was so that you could tailor your regs and your supervision to risk. So why did you not require definitive corrective action based on the flaws that you saw?
Thank you very much, Senator Britt, and I appreciate your comments about the Alabama banking sector, which I think is a thriving sector and is contributing to its communities. And like bankers across the country, is strong and vibrant. You should be very proud.
Thank you. We are.
We are looking at the range of tailoring approaches the Federal Reserve took. The decision to set those lines by asset size and other risk factors was made back in 2019. I joined the board in July of 2022 and began looking at that approach.
Okay.
I expect to continue to review it as part of the SVB review, and I believe we have substantial discretion to alter that framework.
Excellent. So you've talked about your review, which is ongoing. In that review, will you take a look at if you used all of the tools in your toolbox to prevent this, both before and after? Will that be part of your review?
Yes, Senator. The staff are reviewing the steps that supervisors took and whether they should have taken more aggressive action.
So at current rate, though, you can't speak to whether or not you utilized all of the powers that were given to you.
I really would like to wait for the formal review for the staff to come evaluate the full supervisory record to make an assessment.
Absolutely.
But we're certainly very focused on that question, and if we didn't do the right steps, we're going to say that.
Yes. Well, I find it concerning, though, when you all were asked, each one of you were asked, would you like to see more powers, more strength in this? Every single one of you said yes, when you don't actually know if you utilize the tools in your toolbox correctly, or if the people that were under your supervision were supervising appropriately. I think that's what people hate about Washington. We have a crisis, and you come in here without knowing whether or not you did your job. You say you want more. That's not the way this works. You need to be held accountable, each and every one of you. I'm a big believer you got to own your own space. And speaking of, Mr. Grudenberg, I want to talk about yours. So you are not the primary supervisor here. Obviously, that's the Fed, but you are the non-primary supervisor for SVB, or were. Is that correct?
Yes, we have backup supervision.
You have backup supervision. You had that before Dodd-Frank, correct?
Yes.
You had it after Dodd-Frank, correct?
Yes.
And 2155 did not change that responsibility that you had.
That's correct.
Right. So in that role, what did you do prior to the bank's failure to exercise that power?
Yeah, in this instance, we were working with the Fed as the institution was experiencing difficulties, but I think it's fair to say that it was in a supportive role with the primary regulator.
Okay, but you did raise this to the primary regulator. You did exercise
We were
that
working
authority.
with the primary regulator in regard to the institution.
Excellent. I am so glad to hear that. We have to make sure that we are working together and doing our job in order to prevent these things from happening in the future. One of the things I also want to talk about is just the different responsibilities that each of you have and whether they were executed. And then additionally, we'll move into the FDIC's bank auction process for just a minute, although I only have 33 seconds left. It seems that you failed to put the bank in receivership, and the FDIC passed on allowing the Silicon Valley Bank to be purchased. Is that a correct assessment, or do you feel like that's been incorrectly identified throughout the news cycles?
Yes, Senator. The bank was placed in receivership on Friday morning, And we endeavored to solicit bids over the weekend. As I indicated previously, it was a rapid failure, so there was no opportunity prior to failure to prepare for a resolution. We tried to market it. We got 2 bids. Neither would have been less costly than liquidation. So we then proceeded to put in place a process where we were able to bid out.
Yes, and I am out of time, but I will say, in 6 months prior, JP Morgan noticed that there was a problem, their equity research team, and then Moody's obviously met with SVB prior to saying that they were going to downgrade. So I've heard you all say this was a rushed process. If the outside sector knew this was happening, you and the Fed and the 4,000 examinators should have known that this was coming as well.
Senator Warnock of Georgia is recognized.